In 1978, a benefits consultant named Ted Benna was reading a piece of tax legislation. It was boring, the kind of document nobody reads unless they have to. But buried inside Section 401, Ted found something interesting: a small loophole that could let employees defer their salary into a tax-sheltered savings account. Ted thought it was clever. His company became the first to offer what we now call the 401k. And Ted Benna, the man who invented the retirement system that 60 million Americans are depending on to survive, later admitted he created a monster. His words, not mine. Here's the retirement picture in America right now. The median 401k balance for Americans aged 55 to 64, people who are less than a decade from retirement, is $185,000. Financial planners say you need at least $1 million to retire comfortably. But it gets worse. A third of Americans have zero retirement savings at all. Not a little, zero. This isn't because Americans are bad with money. It's because the system they were handed was never designed to work. To understand why, you have to go back to what existed before the 401k. For most of the 20th century, American workers had pensions. And a pension is simple. You work for a company for 30 years. The company promises to pay you a fixed income every month for the rest of your life after you retire. The risk is entirely on the company. Then in 1978, Ted Benna's loophole came along, and corporations saw an opportunity. Because pensions are expensive, they're a liability on the balance sheet forever. The 401k offered something much better, for the company at least. Shift the entire burden of retirement onto the employee. Let workers fund their own retirement. And if the market crashes the week before they retire, that's their problem. Meet Bob. Bob is 32 years old. Bob's company just replaced its pension with a 401k. Bob is told this is actually better. He can invest in whatever he wants. What Bob isn't told is that he now has to be his own fund manager. He has to pick his own investments, he has to time his contributions correctly, he has to hope the stock market is up when he decides to retire, and if he makes any mistakes along the way, the consequences fall entirely on him. The pension was a guarantee. The 401k is a gamble, and America quietly swapped one for the other over a single decade, without most workers even noticing. Now here's where the math gets brutal. To retire at 65 with $1.2 million, a 25-year-old needs to save roughly $400 a month, assuming a 7% average annual return, which is the historical stock market average. Most 25-year-olds aren't saving $400 a month. Student loan payments, groceries, car payments. The savings rate for Americans under 35 is hovering near zero. So they start late, maybe at 35, and now they need to save $800 a month to hit the same target. They start at 45, now it's $1,800 a month. The math compounds against you every year you wait. And then there's the fee problem nobody talks about, because your 401k isn't free. The average 401k charges annual fees of around 1% of your balance. That sounds tiny, but over a 40-year career, a 1% fee doesn't take 1% of your money. It takes 28% of your final balance. A quarter of your retirement, silently siphoned out in fees so small they never show up on a statement. And then there's the final trap. The 401k only works if the stock market cooperates when you need to retire. If the market crashes the year before you plan to stop working, which it has done roughly every 10 years historically, your guaranteed retirement suddenly isn't guaranteed at all. The pension protected you from that. The 401k doesn't. Here's what gets me. The financial industry makes billions off the 401k system. Asset managers, fund companies, brokerages, they all collect fees on every single dollar. The incentive to keep the system exactly as it is enormous. So instead of confronting the structural failure, the narrative becomes, you just need to save more, spend less on coffee, cut the streaming subscriptions. If you're not on track, that's a personal failure, not a systemic one. And the media, which runs ads from the same financial companies profiting from this system, is happy to repeat that narrative forever. Nobody wants to say the quiet part out loud. That America made a $20 trillion bet on a tax loophole that a guy named Ted found in 1978, and called it a retirement system. None of this means you shouldn't use a 401k. You absolutely should, especially if your employer matches contributions. That's free money and you should take every dollar of it. But you should know what it actually is. It's a tax-advantaged investment account. It is not a pension. It is not a guarantee. It is a tool. And like any tool, it only works if you know how to use it, start early enough, and aren't derailed by fees, market timing, or a decade of stagnant wages. The retirement crisis isn't coming. For tens of millions of Americans, it's already here. It just doesn't look like a crisis because it's happening slowly, quietly, one underfunded account at a time. And the first step to fixing your piece of it is understanding that the system was never designed to protect you. It was designed to protect the balance sheets of the companies that used to. If you want more of the financial stories, hit subscribe, because this is just the beginning. See you soon.